All right, guys, as most of you know, many of our political leaders trade hundreds of millions of dollars worth of stocks every single year, which is not a partisan thing, by the way. Both Republicans and Democrats, they're directly in charge of the country's economic policies and laws, are in turn trading gigantic amounts of money in the stock market too. And because of that knowledge that they hold, it's always interesting to see which stocks they're choosing to invest in. Well, one of the more famous of those examples is California Representative Nancy Pelosi, who, along with her husband, has been one of the best investors in recent history. In fact, over the past decade, Pelosi's portfolio has reached an estimated nearly 830% gains, which is a mind-blowing more than 3 times better performance than the S&P 500. And because of this, I thought it'd be fun to take a look at her most current portfolio at the time of this recording, which happens to hold 11 different stocks, all of which have very heavy exposure to artificial intelligence, which would make perfect sense as those politicians would be very familiar with the growing trend that will likely impact virtually all aspects of our country, our economy, our government, our daily lives, and even the entire world. So let's run through all 11 AI stocks in a very fast, rapid fire style. And I'll be sharing my own opinion on each one of them along the way. And just for fun, I'll even rank these stocks from best to worst too, based on that opinion. So smash that like button if you enjoy this. Let me know in the comments too what other politicians' portfolios you'd like me to review next. Let's go ahead and jump straight into it. All right, so this is based on the Pelosi tracking app online, and counting down here from smallest to largest holding at number 11. We actually have Tesla at an estimated $1.3 million, worth around 4% of her overall portfolio. Which I gotta say was a little surprising here to see Tesla make the list, given how political Elon Musk has obviously become in recent years and pretty strong opposition to Democrats. However, I can still understand why a Democrat would choose to invest in Tesla, given how strongly they feel about things like climate change initiatives and are usually pushing heavily towards renewable energy like solar, as well as low emission vehicles like EVs, both of which Tesla is one of the absolute largest players in those markets. And when you tack on battery storage, logistics, autonomous driving, artificial intelligence, and even robotics too, well, you can see why it would also be such a popular stock among smaller retail investors as well. However, while I do own a large position myself in Tesla, I must admit that the current valuation is pretty crazy at the moment, where they trade gigantically more expensive than the sector on virtually any metric you look at. And while this upcoming year should see a noticeable improvement, their financials have been not really the greatest in recent years either, in the face of rising competition. So, even though I've always liked Tesla stock and I've held it for many years as one of my largest holdings, I'm not currently buying any new shares myself, and I've even trimmed the position a little in the past too, just to make sure I locked in some of my insanely high profits. So, because of that, even though I am still bullish on Tesla long term, I am going to have to rank them around the middle for now at number 5 until we see what other options are on this list. Okay, well, coming in at stock number 10, well, we actually have the mighty Microsoft at also about a 4% estimated weight and worth over $1 million too. Now, the biggest reason why I suspect Pelosi invested in them is because over the years, Microsoft has basically been the definition of a safe and steady play in AI, where they not only command the second most cloud market share with Azure, but they were also one of the first companies to jump into the AI race by investing billions of dollars into OpenAI, which they've then leveraged ever since, even using ChatGPT in their own Copilot AI models too, that are now being heavily integrated into everything they offer. All of which is also perfectly monetized through numerous subscription plans available for each. And considering that every single new PC sold now instantly becomes a potential Copilot customer that Microsoft can market directly to, I just think that they're one of the most effective companies in the entire world right now at making AI more useful and easily accessible to the average consumer out there. and even business person too. And when you add on their insane financials with incredible profitability, well, it's practically a must own stock for anyone's portfolio. And while the price is almost always rising, a recent dip has actually left their forward PE trading close to 10% lower than not just their own 5-year average, but even the sector too, which is pretty crazy. So I'm ranking them very high at number 2 because this really is an ultra premium company at surprisingly still a pretty reasonable valuation for what you get back in return. Up next, though, at number 9, well, we have Apple, ticker symbol AAPL, sitting also north of $1 million and worth about 4% of her portfolio. For a long time, though, people were actually worried about Apple falling behind in the AI race. But after they dropped Apple Intelligence and reminded everyone that this is a cash cow business that really owns a huge chunk of what is practically the most valuable real estate in the entire world, that being the pocket of the average consumer, well, being able to integrate AI into people's phones has actually raised awareness for what this company could potentially do with AI longer term and how it could help monetize their already lucrative and very sticky ecosystem of products and services even further. But while I certainly agree that Apple's financials are crazy high and attractive, the company just isn't as diversified or reliably high growth as some of my other favorite big tech names in the market, like Google, for example, who not only controls Android, but has a billion other things that they do very well in tech, too. I'm obviously exaggerating. Apple's price has also skyrocketed, though, by over 900% in the past decade, leaving a bit of a mixed valuation depending on the metric you look at. However, because I do own the stock myself, and I generally agree with it being a solid long term holding, I am still going to rank them fairly high at number 4 for now, but may adjust it lower depending on what else we see coming up. At number 8, though, we have CrowdStrike, which is a little larger of a stake here for Pelosi at about 5% weight and worth an estimated $1.6 million. Now, this one is pretty interesting because really being a huge cybersecurity play, that's in a market there that I think will only grow larger in terms of importance over time, which I'm sure politicians are well aware of as AI is not only getting smarter, but so too are hackers learning new ways of using it to cause further damage. Well, CrowdStrike actually uses AI themselves to help fight and prevent much of that. In fact, their flagship platform called Falcon can even learn from every attack to protect all their other customers from it too in real time, which even after that big global outage that they had a while back, the company has maintained strong market share with impressive growth on both the top and bottom line. And so too has the stock recovered heavily from that dip, where it's now climbed by over 500% in the past 6 years, around there after going public in 2019. As a result, though, the valuation is pretty expensive at these levels, trading several hundreds of percent higher than the sector on even an adjusted basis. So I guess I'll give Tesla a very slight edge here in our rankings for being just a bit more diversified beyond one single market. But I would understand swapping those two depending on what the needs are in your own portfolio. Coming in at number 7, though, may be a newer name for some of you in Tempest AI, which makes up around 7% of Pelosi's portfolio and worth over $2 million. As for what they do, though, well, this is actually a healthcare play, but one that uses artificial intelligence to analyze huge amounts of clinical and molecular data in order to help doctors provide personalized medicine. In the short term, Tempest could act as a very effective AI assistant to doctors around the world, and longer term, they hope for major breakthroughs like using AI to find the exact treatment for a specific patient's cancer based on their DNA. As you'd expect, though, some of those more revolutionary breakthroughs are likely many years away, and as such, this remains a high risk, high reward type of play, in my opinion, given that they do have high revenue growth, but have also lost a lot of money on the bottom line too. And although that is expected to improve in the coming years, the stock has already soared by over 80% since IPOing a couple years ago, leaving a pretty rich valuation behind that is still close to 200% higher than the sector when even based on just sales alone. I actually really like Tempest as a long-term kind of spec play, even though I don't currently own it myself, but I've always kind of wanted to. But I just think that they do have tremendous future potential. But they're obviously nowhere near as proven yet as the other stocks that we've seen so far on this list. So they will have to go in last place for now, almost by default. Excuse me. All right. At number six, though, we've got Vistra Corp. At also about a 7% weight in her portfolio and worth over $2 million. Now, while this is technically a utility energy company, well, it's actually one with heavy ties to artificial intelligence in that they're not only an independent power producer, but a growing portion of their customer base also includes large AI driven data centers that will only grow hungrier for electricity as AI demand rises. Well, one of the most attractive aspects of Vistra is that they're also one of the few power companies that already has operating nuclear capacity, which is very likely going to be the energy source of the future, given that these massive data centers will need reliable, low emission 24/7 power. As such, their financials have soared more recently to break new record highs, which drove the stock price higher by over 600% in just the past few years alone. And although their current ratios are more expensive than the sector, given the big climb in price, when you actually factor in their expected growth over the next 5 or so years, well, their PEG ratio, price to earnings to growth, actually drops all the way down to 58% cheaper than the sector, which is very attractive. Now, I don't own this stock yet myself, but I have heavily thought about it, and I'm even going to rank them above CrowdStrike because of it. I think it's a great way to play the AI trend without necessarily having to buy a so called tech type of stock. All right, guys, we are now getting into the heaviest of hitters, though, because at number five, well, we have the mighty Amazon, which makes up over 8% of Pelosi's portfolio and is worth over $2.5 million as well. Now, most people think of Amazon as the e commerce giant, and rightfully so, of course. But even they too have one of the absolute largest AI businesses in the world, as AWS helps them command more market share in cloud computing than literally any other company in the world. So, considering that AI ultimately lives on the cloud and gets trained on gigantic servers that are then distributed all over the world through these massive data centers, well, that alone makes Amazon a top AI play for the future, let alone everything else they do in the field, from robotics and autonomous driving to even chip design now, too. And financially, this is easily one of the biggest and strongest companies you'll ever find, considering they did nearly $700 billion in sales last year, which was still somehow up double digits. That's crazy. And there's even more growth to be had on the bottom line, too, which is why their PEG ratio is actually cheaper than the sector, if you can believe it, despite the stock continuously breaking new record highs. You might be shocked to learn this, but at present time, I actually like Amazon stock even more than Microsoft. So they're taking the first place ranking for now on our list. All right, coming in at number four, though, well, we have another security giant, cybersecurity, in Palo Alto Networks, which is also worth around 8% of Pelosi's portfolio at north of $2.5 million. Similar to CrowdStrike, though, Palo uses AI to essentially build a firewall around the world's data and are focusing heavily on platformization, which is just a fancy way of really saying that they want to be a one-stop shop for a company's entire security needs. Now, this is being done through their multi-platform strategy consisting of Prisma, Cortex, Strata, Unit, and more that together provide customers with a unified AI-driven cybersecurity ecosystem that simplifies operations and enhances protection across all environments, which has led to a ton of success for them, even collecting the most revenue from cybersecurity spend last year, according to Omdia Research, while both sales and profits continue to grow larger every year too. However, the stock has in turn soared, leaving a rich valuation that is considerably more expensive than the sector on virtually any metric you look at. It is, however, still cheaper than CrowdStrike, though, so I will bump them down one spot to put Palo in their place on our rankings here as Pelosi's favorite cybersecurity play for the future. All right, now moving into the top three largest holdings of Pelosi. At number three, well, we have another stock that I also own myself too, in Broadcom, ticker symbol AVGO, which is worth a whopping 15% of her portfolio at close to $5 million. If you're not too familiar, though, this company makes the networking chips that let AI data centers essentially talk to each other at lightning fast speeds, meaning that without their hardware, many AI models would be too slow to really be very useful, acting as basically the glue that holds much of the AI infrastructure together. Not to mention, there are many other chips too, like AI accelerators that are highly customizable to meet the specific needs of any hyperscaler like Google, Meta, and even Amazon, all of which, by the way, have already hired Broadcom to make custom AI silicon that helps speed up their AI workloads behind the scenes. Plus, their massive $69 billion acquisition of VMware was actually the biggest reason why I first entered the stock myself, as it helped them expand even deeper into enterprise software, data center virtualization, cloud infrastructure, and even cybersecurity too. All of which has driven giant growth on both the top and bottom line. So much so, in fact, that even after skyrocketing by over 600% in just the past 5 years alone, the stock's valuation is actually still cheaper than the sector on a PEG basis. And I'm going to rank them pretty high here. I'm going to put them higher than Tesla because of it. All right, at number two, though, the second largest holding of Pelosi's, well, that's going to be in Google, where it makes up a massive 18% of the portfolio and worth around $5.7 million. And yeah, if anyone was going to give Amazon a run for their money there at that top spot, it would be Google, who is literally synonymous with searching anything online, not to mention having launched their own AI chatbot in Gemini, owning the biggest video platform in the world with YouTube, where you're watching this very video, in fact. They have even more market share than Apple as a phone OS with Android, and they even have a massive cloud business too, as the third largest in the entire world, which, like Amazon, their financials are also just as mind-blowing, having generated over $385 billion in sales over the past year, of which $124 billion went straight to the bottom line, on incredible growth of more than 30%. I mean, it's pretty much impossible to find these kind of numbers anywhere else in the market other than, just a few giant behemoths like Amazon or Microsoft, depending on how you compare them. But although I like Google's business just as much as Amazon's, maybe even more, the stock is not quite as attractive from a valuation perspective at this present moment, where it's been breaking record highs and now trades 75% higher than the sector, even on a PEG basis. Whereas you'll recall that Amazon is actually lower than the sector on that same metric. So I will keep Amazon just barely ahead of them for present time at number one, even though I don't think you could really go wrong with really any of these top like three here, including Microsoft. That is going to make our final ranking very difficult, though, because coming in as the largest holding of Pelosi's portfolio, we have what is the only stock to be worth over 20% at also more than $6 million. And that is what many consider to really be the king of AI right now in NVIDIA, whose powerful GPUs have quickly become the most popular processing chips in the entire world for powering most of this AI revolution. In fact, it's estimated that NVIDIA now controls about 90% of the AI chips market and a staggering 98% share of data center GPUs too, with the results being that their financials are almost, I'm not even sure how to put this. Just look at this here. Last fiscal year, NVIDIA did $130 billion in sales, of which 72 billion went straight to the bottom line for an insane margin of 55%. And that's not even the craziest part. Guys, both their sales and their profits grew by triple-digit rates. In fact, this company is growing by so much that despite the stock skyrocketing by about 25,000% over the past decade to become the first company in history to cross a $4 trillion market cap, their valuation is still somehow a whopping 35% lower than the sector on a PEG basis when you factor in that future growth expected. That's how on fire this company is right now. And as far as ranking it goes, it's super tough here because I really think that you can make arguments for Amazon, Google, Microsoft, or NVIDIA each being worthy of that top spot. But I think to kind of differentiate them, I'll give the other three tech giants the edge here for being just so much more diversified than Nvidia, which may help lower the risk a little bit long term. But again, that's not at all a knock on Nvidia. I'm actually at a bit of a loss for words myself when I look at how incredibly well they're performing. But hey, there you have it, guys. That's Nancy Pelosi's AI-driven portfolio and my official ranking of each of her stocks from best to worst, in my opinion. But what do you guys think? Do you agree with my rankings, or would you make any changes to it? Let me know down in the comment section, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more portfolio deep dives in the future. But hey, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you're all doing well, and I will catch you guys in the next one. All right, take care, my friends. Bye-bye.